nice to see many of you. Hi, Karen. It's been a while. It's nice to see you. Welcome. We are so excited to get to kind of restart after a summer hiatus, MHF's monthly virtual conversations, just really trying to gather folks, both from MHF as well as friends from other organizations. One of the things I love about MHF is how connected we are with these different, we sometimes call them partner organizations, which includes Nazareth Project and SERVE Nazareth, which includes a Nazareth Hospital, which also includes groups like the Global Anabaptist Health Network. It's really fun for me as the director because I really get to meet so many folks and to see the ways that MHF really gets to serve beyond our US borders and to build these partnerships. So tonight we're really excited to get to have Howard from Nazareth Project with us, and Teresa, who kind of crosses borders as well, because Teresa went with SERVE Nazareth, but we have a program with Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship, and it is for professionals, so folks who have already graduated school, who are interested in a term of service that is healthcare in nature. And that's called our Stephen Roth Memorial Grant Program. And Teresa was able to apply and take advantage of that as part of the support to go to Nazareth. But it's so great for us because then we get to have this dialogue. So thank you for being with us, Teresa. And Andrew Metzler, who many of you have seen around MHF, has a fun dual role with MHF as well as on the board of Nazareth Project. So we're really glad that he's here with us tonight. I am going to start by actually turning things over to Howard to do a little presenting on Nazareth Project. And we will go from there then to hear more from Teresa about her experiences.
Thank you very much, Kate. I'm delighted to be here tonight, and thanks for organizing this time of sharing information. We're all excited to hear more about Teresa's experience. I'm happy to have Ron Byler as part of the meeting tonight. Ron recently joined NPI in a part-time role, working in development with us. I have a few slides I was going to share. I'm not sure I can show them exactly like I wanted to, but we decided earlier that the way I can present them is acceptable. I can't quite get full screen, and we didn't have time to figure it out. So hopefully you can see the slides on your screen. Here's a picture of Israel-Palestine. If you haven't been there recently, you'll see that Nazareth is north of the West Bank. It's west of the Galilee, and you'll see where Tel Aviv is and Jerusalem. And the West Bank and Gaza are on this map as well. Nazareth is well known for the Church of the Annunciation. There are two of them in Nazareth. A traditional Arab town with narrow streets, fruit vendors, and on the west side of the city, you'll find Nazareth Hospital and School of Nursing. And below these, the hospital and the school, is the Nazareth Village, which was founded in 2000 by important efforts by a whole variety of people, but it became part of the Nazareth Trust in the year 2000. The Nazareth Trust is a trust in Scotland. It's the umbrella ownership entity for the hospital, the school, for Nazareth Village, and also SERVE Nazareth. I have a slide or two of the village here. It's a reenactment of first century life in Palestine. And it was built around a a wine press that was dated to authentically be 1st century. The hospital is the large circle and the school is the smaller one. The hospital has passed 160 years of existence in Palestine and Israel. It was during the Ottoman Empire when the medical ministry began, and the School of Nursing is the smaller circle. I have a few pictures during the COVID days. Here's some of the leadership team doing their planning of how they were going to treat COVID patients. Kate, I assume you're all seeing this, right? Oh, you're muted. Yeah, okay, I see Teresa shaking her head. Here's a picture of Dr. Fayed, the medical director, monitoring things during COVID, and a celebration event near the end of the COVID pandemic period for all the special efforts of the hospital staff. An important additional ministry during the time of COVID was the chaplaincy services that were provided by staff and local volunteers, and Teresa will tell us more about that. But here are some of those staff, 2 from Holland and Reverend Suhail in the middle. Another thing we do with the hospitals, we raise some U.S. government funding. Here's a plaque on the wall for funding Nazareth Project God for a new cardiac unit at the hospital. We also got funding for pediatric surgical unit, and more recently for a dialysis, expanded dialysis unit. Here's a photo of a Arab Canadian donor whose father had been a chaplain at the hospital. So this was part of the special opening event recognizing the donor, but also the funding from USAID that came through NPI. Just a word about, we are able to attract funding, but we not only like to focus on treating diseases, but preventing diseases. And here's a diabetes prevention clinic that was done in conjunction with the program to bring in new equipment. We also collaborate with the School of Nursing. The School of Nursing will be 100 years old next year. This is Dr. Salam, the director of the school. And we just are next month expecting another award, $1.5 million to buy equipment for the expanding School of Nursing. There's high demand for nurses in Israel, just like many places. And we're delighted that they are answering the call and expanding, and we're glad to collaborate with the school. Here's a photo of some students. And one of our connections to the school is the late Nancy Martin. Many of you know Nancy and her husband, Bob. And Nancy provided important leadership to the school during the 1990s, I think it was, 1980s, helped to get it registered with the Israeli government and set up the BA program, the RN program. And we have a memorial scholarship fund in her name to provide scholarships to students. SERVE is an important engagement opportunity for North Americans connecting with the Nazareth Trust. And we will hear more about Teresa's experience in a minute. This is one of the photos she sent us with her friends in the nursery, if I have it correctly. Another engagement opportunity. Provide people the opportunity of basically walking the same places where Jesus walked in northern Israel in the Galilee area, and also to raise money for a good cause. And one of the causes next year is the chaplaincy. They also sponsor bike rides from time to time. Similar idea, to ride in Israel, Palestine, to see the Holy Land and to raise money for a good cause. And we at NPI sponsor a tour periodically. We have another one next March. If you're interested in that, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. We visit places in the greater Jerusalem area and the greater Nazareth area. So the trust, as I said, works with these 4 entities: the hospital, the school, SERVE, and Nazareth Village. I think I'll stop. Well, I have one more slide. This is the mission statement for the trust. However, Andrew, can you help me? I can't see the whole thing because my screen is partly hidden. Could you read that, please?
Following the teaching and example of Jesus of Nazareth, the Trust, unique in its position in the Middle East, aims to reach out to the local population and to the wider world, irrespective of faith, political persuasion, or tradition, through healthcare, education, proclamation, and service.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate, and good to see everybody in the meeting. I look forward to hearing from Teresa and Andrew later.
Thank you so much, Howard. It's really been a joy for me to learn more about the work that you do across Nazareth, in Nazareth Village, the hospital, and the School of Nursing, especially, is something I've been learning more about your work there. That's really.
And Kate, I failed to say it's been a delight working together with you. I think we started talking in 19 or 20, and then the pandemic came, but we actually received some funding jointly from the Showalter Foundation for you to provide important resources to the chaplaincy program in Nazareth and to mutually promote this opportunity to our friends in North America. And so thank you so much for all that you have done for our friends in Nazareth, and we appreciate the collaboration.
Absolutely. It's been a joy for me as well. I want to turn to you, Teresa, and we have a list of questions. We're going to kind of do a question and answer format here. But before we do that, Teresa, would you just like to introduce yourself a little bit, share a bit about your healthcare background, and how you became interested in this opportunity to go to Nazareth and volunteer at the hospital?
Sure. My name is Teresa Regier, and my career was I became a nurse practitioner back in '93, I believe. I finished school. Also did a postmaster certificate in midwifery at some point too, and worked in family practice. I did not do deliveries after we moved up here. We live in British Columbia now. But I practiced in Washington State, so it involved driving across the border to do that. That was kind of my background. And as we started to, I'll just kind of go into answering your question about how we became interested. As we got close to retirement, my husband and I had talked about what it might mean for us to do some volunteer activities during our retirement. And also we'd been to Israel a couple of times back in 2001, and in 2020, we again went on tours there. The first trip there, we initially thought of it as kind of a once in a lifetime experience. But as we left Israel, we looked at each other and said, we have to come back. It was just such a wonderful experience of the scriptures coming alive for us as we visited biblical sites. So then in early 2021, I had just retired when I got the email that you all did probably for this Zoom session that there was going to be a session to explore opportunities to explore doing a chaplain volunteer experience in Nazareth. And I looked at it. It said that specifically that you didn't have to be a professional chaplain to apply, but that they would welcome people that were retired. And that just sounded like something I would be interested in. The opportunity to spend more than just a few weeks in this area was just really appealing. And then my husband would be able to volunteer at Nazareth Village, so it just kind of all fell into place for us, and we soon sent in our applications.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I remember seeing you on that call and hearing more about your interest. And I love that, desire to do some volunteering in retirement. I think we hear that a lot from MHF members as they're moving into that phase of life and how meaningful that is.
Yeah.
Obviously this opportunity arose, but outside of the practicalities, like what really drew you to the ministry of chaplaincy specifically?
Well, I think we had done some missionary work in India years ago, and I found it very difficult to operate in my area of expertise in my career, and so I went into this not expecting to use all the skills that I'd learned. I wanted to do something different, and chaplaincy seemed like another way to show care and compassion, which is what drew me to my career choices to begin with. And also, my faith is important to me, and I care about supporting people's spiritual needs. So it just was something that caught my interest when I heard about it.
I think, yes, the faith and the spiritual needs part is so key, and having that missionary background. And what from your previous background in healthcare prepared you for serving as a volunteer chaplain?
I think because I was comfortable with sick people, and I was comfortable with people that were in need, and I was comfortable around hospital. I think that it felt comfortable to do something like that. Also, I think that care and compassion are things that you use both in when you give healthcare and when you give spiritual care. And so there's some of the same interpersonal skills involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I know a big part of chaplaincy training here in the US. I think I see a few folks on here who are chaplains, and have been through clinical pastoral education, it's called, is just that getting comfortable in the hospital setting and making sure you're comfortable relating, to people who are vulnerable and who are in those places. And so, when people make a change, whether it's volunteer, from another healthcare career, I think there's already that place. And my next question is, what ways were you not so prepared to serve as a chaplain, and what were you able to do?
Probably the most difficult part was not having Arabic language fluency. I think I was actually trying to learn some Arabic on a Pimsleur app on my phone, which is a very helpful app. But if any of you have ever tried to learn a language, it takes years of study and practice to become fluent. And I had not really hoped to use that in the work there. I was hoping that I would be able to say a few phrases to people, that maybe I'd pick out some words here and there, but I did not expect to be able to use Arabic in a real way as a part of the chaplain team. So I would say that was the main barrier. However, I did have opportunities to give nonverbal care and compassion, as well as to pray with English speaking staff and patients. Christine was very clear that she didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to pray for people if they couldn't understand what I was asking and what I was praying about. And so we were really sensitive about that. But I found that I could still communicate caring and compassion just in how I interacted with, my smiles and my showing of concern. Just those kinds of nonverbals were really important. I was also able to participate in a Bible study that the chaplain team had with several of the staff members. And it was an interesting kind of discussion using both Arabic and English. And it was surprising how meaningful it was, even though there was that language issue. I also had the privilege to do a devotional for the administration staff one morning, and that was interpreted by one of the participants, and I felt really good about being able to do that as well.
That's wonderful how you found ways through the language barriers and other ways of connecting. And then my next question, I think, is perhaps one of the more exciting ones. Is are you willing to share a story or a memorable encounter or insights that you had while volunteering as a chaplain?
Yeah, I would say I very much enjoyed my time with Christine on the team. I was impressed with the chaplain goal, in particular, to minister to patients and staff of all faiths and to reach out into the community as they could as well. And I found that most people were very appreciative of a visit from a chaplain, even if they were not Christian. And one Muslim man commented to us that it was also a good thing in his religion to visit the sick. So he was very supportive of us visiting. I found that Christine was always willing to talk to people because there was often an opportunity that she could leave a seed for outreach, or even just to build a relationship. Or at one point, because one man was sharing all about his faith, she was able to share some about her faith as well, which was a good opportunity to do that. I think the usual culture of the patients in the hospital doesn't allow for much long-term relationship building. But Howard had mentioned the dialysis unit, and that is one place where they visited. The dialysis patients, of course, are there 2 or 3 times a week, and the chaplains did develop long-term relationships with a lot of those people. And sometimes at different times, they would also bring communion to those that were interested in receiving that. So that was a good thing for them as well. I would say I remember lots of times of prayer with both patients and staff. But one time in particular, I remember a woman who was a believer, and she told us that she was very adamant, I must and I want to accept whatever God has for me. But she felt bad asking for his help. She said that if she asked for help, it was like she wasn't accepting. And we were able to reassure her that being accepting doesn't mean that you can ask God for help. He's there. He wants to help, and that she can always depend on him. And I think that made a real difference to her. And she seemed reassured when we left her room. So that was one opportunity that I felt like we had really, really helped her with that.
Thank you for sharing that. For those that we haven't said, clearly Christine is she the staff chaplain, or she's one of the sort of key chaplains that is on staff there, and she's wonderful. She is married to someone from Nazareth and has children there, but is originally from the UK. So it's a fun kind of her navigating these multiple cultures, I think, really lends to a real spiritual gift for being in the hospital. And I'm so happy you got to work with her. And working with her and supporting her is something that this grant from Showalter and other was able to do, which was wonderful. Whenever people are thinking of like a time of international volunteering or traveling, of course, there's the what might the actual experience in the hospital look like or in the volunteer site, but what is the day-to-day like? What was that like for you, the day-to-day experience with SERVE Nazareth and the times outside of the hospital?
Okay. Well, I kind of just described kind of what my schedule might have been. And if you want some more answers, let me know. But the volunteers with SERVE typically work Monday through Friday. And some volunteers are full-time in the hospital, some are full-time at Nazareth Village, and some are part-time at both of them. My husband was at the Village full-time, and generally tours started there at 9 o'clock, and he usually finished by 5 or 5:30. And my schedule was split between working in the nursery. I worked pretty much as a nurse's aide and did all kinds of things, changing babies, feeding babies, dressing them, undressing them, folding laundry, cleaning the cribs, just almost everything that there is to do there. They usually let me go between 1:30 and 2:30 just because things slowed down and there wasn't a lot to do at that point. The days that I was with Christine, we usually met between 9:30 and 10, depending on what the plan was for that day. And we were usually finished by 2:30 or 3:30, again, depending on what that day was like. But then that left some time before supper for either taking a nap, doing laundry, journaling, just a variety of things. And then most evenings we would get our meal from the hospital cafeteria and we'd eat together with other volunteers in the house. And then the evenings were free. Weekends were free for traveling. We often walked down into Nazareth and explored and enjoyed some good food. And there was also opportunities to sightsee in the Galilee area or in other parts of Israel, but we were primarily responsible for organizing that kind of thing. So it just depends on how brave you were to find the bus and figure it all out. Yeah. Any other questions about that?
I mean, this is the kind of question I would ask, but how was the food? Did you, in Nazareth, did you eat anything memorable?
I came back wanting to make good homemade hummus. I discovered there is a difference between hummus that wasn't so good and hummus that is good. So I've successfully made it a couple of times here at home. So that's felt good.
That's wonderful. My little sister is so fun. She would always go on vacation and I'd say, "How was your vacation?" And she would open up her notebook and she would start, "On Monday for breakfast, I ate." And she would just go through and I'd say, "But how was your vacation?" And she's like, "I just told you."
Yeah.
It's all about the food. No, that's wonderful that you got some great hummus and yeah, just a lot of different aspects of the experience. It sounds like there was some balance in the day as well. It wasn't entirely go.
Right. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And then what was it like for you to be able to travel and volunteer with your spouse? I know a lot of folks thinking about, how might we volunteer in retirement? That is a question. What's it like for you?
Well, for us, it was really a good experience. I think that because this kind of experience has such a profound impact on you as a person, that if you're able to share that with your spouse, it can be really, really valuable. And we did see a lot of the people there were either single or they came without their spouse. And I'm sure they also had a great time too. But if you are married and you can bring your spouse with you, it's great. I would recommend it.
That's awesome. Absolutely. And, my last formal question for you is, what would you advise someone interested in serving as a volunteer chaplain in the future? And I might open this up to in serving with SERVE Nazareth in the future, because there are different roles here at MHF. We're supporting that chaplaincy role, but just someone interested in this experience, but also as a chaplain.
Yeah, I think because there's such a language barrier, most of us won't go to Nazareth with a fluency in Arabic. That's just probably not the usual. I think it's important to realize what your limitations will be going in, and but to be aware that there still are contributions that you can make, because I think those contributions still can be quite significant. Anytime you go into another culture, I think it's also important to enter it respectfully and as a learner. Also for me, my goal was really focused. I wanted to be able to serve, and that colored my whole interaction with everybody. In the nursery, it was sometimes hard work, and it was certainly not what I had been doing in my career, but I wanted to convey the idea that I was there to serve them, and I wanted to do everything that they requested me to do without any kind of hesitation and with a smile. And so that's what I would encourage somebody going to do, is just to be ready to serve and to feel like that's what you're there for. I would encourage anybody that is interested in doing something like this, because it was an experience I won't forget. And I will always have a special place in my heart for Nazareth and her people.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for sharing from your heart and from your experiences. We are going to have plenty of time for folks to ask you questions. And I know there's folks on this call who've been to Nazareth to share some of your own experiences. I first want to turn to Andrew because as I said in the beginning, Andrew has this fun role, because Andrew serves on the board as well as the administrator for MHF, and also serves on the board with Nazareth Project. I would love to hear how you got involved in Nazareth Project, and then just what you see as some of the synergies between MHF and NPI.
Absolutely, glad to. For those of you I hadn't met before, it's a pleasure to see you all. As Kate mentioned, I have the unique pleasure of serving on both the board for the Nazareth Project and Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship. The Nazareth Project and Nazareth Hospital and the Nazareth Trust are, to be clear, not Anabaptist in paper or in any way, but they are prominent Christian organizations in northern Israel, and have a long history of involvement from Mennonites for a long time. And so there's been since the days of the Mennonite Medical Association and the Mennonite Nurses Association, the predecessors to MHF, there's been a lot of overlap and a lot of overlap between folks who have been involved in Nazareth and folks involved in, like I said, formerly the Mennonite Medical Association, the Mennonite Nurses Association, and now the Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship. So that's kind of how I came to connect with the Nazareth Project, through those people that kind of joint overlap there. And while Nazareth Hospital and the Nazareth Project and the Nazareth Trust are not Anabaptist or Mennonite in any way, they do have a lot of Anabaptist values of Christian service that are common throughout our Mennonite history. So I came to be connected through my work on the MHF board to some folks at the Nazareth Project, and so that's how that came to pass. And it's to answer your question about kind of that overlap and connection. I think it's really interesting how the Nazareth Project is able to put into actual practice and in a more tangible and hands-on way a lot of our Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship values and mission. Particularly over the course of the pandemic, Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship has been really emphasizing mutual support, because opportunities for service through the pandemic are just now starting to return. But NPI and the Nazareth Trust and the SERVE program all serve as phenomenal ways to actually do that service that is core to our Mennonite and Anabaptist value values, but not not a direct offering that Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship as an organization is able to provide. Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship provides funding through two different funds: the student elective term for funds for students, and the Stephen Roth Memorial Grant, for professionals, working professionals, and we mobilize or aim to mobilize for that. And this is just one great way of doing that. But whereas MHF doesn't have a direct service capacity, the Nazareth Project through the SERVE program and such as this does. And in that experience, are those foundational, again, Anabaptist and Mennonite, values, and again, one of the most prominent Christian organizations in northern Israel. So I think that's how I see kind of these, in addition to that long history, 50 years of history of Mennonite service at Nazareth Project, and us finding ways to continue that, or not Nazareth Project, at Nazareth Hospital. Mennonite folks have served there for over 50 years. I think Howard can correct me if I get the number of years wrong, but I think it's been about that long. And so this is one way we can continue that and continue that presence, in that way. And so those are kind of how I see the mission of Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship and the Nazareth Project kind of overlapping in that real tangible service experience for as an opportunity for all members of MHF. I think that regardless of skill set, as Teresa was sharing, your skill set is less important. I think from what I heard from that is that your skill set is less important than your willingness to serve and the care and compassion you have to give, and that applies broadly to all volunteers in this capacity, and certainly all members of Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship. So for those of you who are joining our call from the MHF side, do kind of check out what that could look like. And those of you joining the call from the Nazareth Project side, that maybe that tells you a little bit more about what what MHF is about and is able to offer its constituencies. But it's been I started working with Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship prior to my time with Nazareth Project, but it's been really cool to see how this chaplaincy program has evolved over time, and how we're able to bring these synergies together in a tangible way, that brings outside of particularly outside of the US. So that's kind of what I see as kind of our synergy and our strengths in working together with two organizations that are aligned well in similar values.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Yeah, I love how you put that. We have these grant programs, but we don't necessarily have the exact spaces to put folks, although we do certainly try to connect people. We had a set grantee just this past summer travel out to work with the Indian Health Service through a connection through MHF. One of the things that was so exciting to me as a chaplain, I came to MHF, I was a chaplain in pediatrics prior, is that there are very few international service and volunteer opportunities for chaplains that really have a program that's set up to be able to really, provide this mutual compassion, and that have this space, someone to work with like Christine at the hospital. And so it was exciting to me because our grant programs hadn't really been open to chaplains. They hadn't been closed to chaplains, but there hadn't really been an opportunity that matched the chaplain skill set for the chaplains in our constituency, which is a lot. In fact, our just stepped down board president, Claire Haustetler, is here, although Claire remains on the board. So MHF has had a large component of chaplains. And so that was really great to be able to incorporate that into the service programs.
Hey, could I just add a couple comments? First, Andrew, thank you very much for serving on the NPI board as well. I wanted to just throw up two photos that I think would give a bit of context to some of the people that we're talking about, if I may. The first is a photo of Christine. We've been talking about her. Here she is on this photo. Can you see that? And she's there with other members of the pastoral care team. And previously, she was the director of the SERVE program, and the volunteer chaplaincy opportunity actually is one opportunity under the SERVE program. And the new director of the SERVE, I'll put up another photo here. I just grabbed this off the website as we were talking here. Can you see Magdalene on the left? And Magdalene and Christine will actually be traveling, we hope, in the US during October 8 to 15. I'm arranging an itinerary for them to promote SERVE, including opportunities for the chaplaincy in different communities that we will be visiting. They'll be speaking at Fraser Mennonite Church here in Lancaster at the Lancaster Mennonite School. We'll be meeting with EMM, have a meeting at Landis Homes for people interested in the work of SERVE and the ministries in Nazareth. Then we'll be going to Harrisonburg for some meetings at EMU and VMM, excuse me for the alphabet soup. We'll be visiting Rosedale International on our way west, and then in Goshen, Indiana with Goshen College, Mennonite Mission Network, AMBS, and then last day attending the Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship Conference at Camp Mac. So that'll be a good opportunity for Christine to meet chaplains who are attendants at that event. Lastly, I just want to say that there's a couple in Oregon. Gingricks, Byron is recently retired chaplain. They are planning to be in Nazareth this fall. And I think the Schellenbergs, who are on this call, and Karen Sensnick have been in discussion with Christine and Magdalene about the opportunity of going in the future. Maybe there are others on the call who have been in that conversation, but I'm aware of Karen and the Schellenbergs. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks for all of that, Howard. I really appreciate it. And yes, that actually leads me into the last thing that I need to formally say before we open for just discussion, questions, being together, which is that tomorrow registration is going to open for Mennonite Healthcare Fellowship's annual gathering. It's going to be at Camp Mac, which is about 20 minutes outside of Goshen, from October 13th through 15th. So it's a Friday through a Sunday morning, Friday dinner through Sunday morning. The theme this year is nurturing people, thriving as providers in today's healthcare environment. We're really looking forward to it. We have a couple of great speakers coming. We're really excited to have Christine and Magdalene, and maybe see Howard. Yeah, we'll really look forward to that time. So please watch for registration to open tomorrow. If you have questions, please let me know. We'll have options for sleeping at Camp Mac. We'll also have options for those who have housing in or near Goshen who would like to come in for the daytimes. So please do think about that. We're really looking forward to that weekend. I want to just open it for discussion, conversations. We'll try to do this, just unmute yourself and chat. I think that everyone is able to do that, but do raise your hand or let me know if you need help. If you have questions for Teresa, for anybody at all.
I have a question for Teresa. Yes, Teresa. So imagining yourself in the hallways of the hospital, how did you decide who to visit? Do you visit everybody that comes in as a patient, or does Christine make out the list, or following up with people who made specific requests for a visit?
I think that Christine and the chaplain team would love it if their staff would be more giving them requests, but that hasn't happened like they would like it to happen. So basically they would decide, and I didn't go on my own at all. I was with Christine, and she made the decisions of where to go. We usually did the dialysis unit every week, and we also did the maternity, which sometimes we had some donations of gifts that we pass out to the new moms. So that was a good thing to do. We stopped at various places for staff too, and those were also meaningful times to pray for what the staff had as far as prayer requests. But we went into all of the units within the course of the week, usually.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question in general. This is Jeff Hosteller. What do you do about the language issue? Because it seems to me that chaplaincy volunteering really requires some kind of communication with the client. Do you have interpreters, or you just not speak with people who don't understand English? And is that one of the major drawbacks for chaplains actually volunteering to go international?
Well, as far as my experience was, yes, that is a major thing. But I think when they set up this whole thing, they had a lot of volunteer chaplains from the community that they paired people with. And then COVID happened, they lost a lot of those people, and they would like to build some of that up, and so that people could go out in teams of 2 or whatever. But as a foreign person who doesn't speak Arabic, you would never go out by yourself. You would always have someone who could speak the language with you. And hopefully, hopefully I gave you an idea earlier of what kinds of things you could still do. But yes, and I think, Christine and I also spent time praying just with the 2 of us too. But we did visit people every day. I did with her. She spoke the Arabic. If there was an English speaker, I could interact as well. But it is somewhat limited by your ability to speak Arabic, of course.
The other thing I wanted to mention is a shout out to my nephew and his wife, Jim and Virginia Hosteller, who were very integral in the life of Nazareth Village. I think they spent 10 years there in building that program, if I'm not mistaken. So are anybody familiar with Jim and Sandy? Jim and Virginia and Jenny? They're now in Canada. This was years ago when they're first struggling to get off the ground. Their dream of making a first century village and having actual little playlets going on and making authentic looking houses, etc., and asking for money. And it was really a hard time. But now I understand Nazareth Village has all kinds of international viewers, travelers, visitors. I'm just sending it out. My brother's son and his wife were part of that. So not Jim, Michael.
Jeff, I think you mean Mike.
Michael. Jim lives here. The old man got confused.
And Ron, you had experience with Mike in Nazareth, correct? Go ahead.
Yeah. In those years, I was working with Mike on various projects, so I got a little bit involved in that. I did a film called Brother, Brother, which was a retelling of the Good Samaritan story. Worked on a variety of projects with Mike. Yeah, Mike and Jenny poured their lives and hearts and souls into that opportunity.
They were there, what, 10 years?
I'm not sure how long they were there.
Yeah, okay, well, enough of that.
Teresa, I'm wondering, have you had an opportunity to share about your experiences with your congregation or other groups in your community, and what kind of responses have you gotten?
Well, actually, we haven't shared in our congregation yet, but I did send out a weekly newsletter to friends and family, which they seem to really appreciate while we were there. I just did once a week, week 1, week 2, and it was valuable for me because it helped me to organize my thoughts and my experience. And we got some really good responses from people about that. I'd be definitely willing to share in our church, but so far they haven't asked us to do that. So I don't know. Maybe the opportunity will still be there.
And you're part of the Mennonite Brethren Conference in Canada. Do you expect they'll want to tell the story?
I don't know. We haven't been shy about telling people what we were doing, and we were gone for 3 months. So, but I think people were interested and excited. I just don't know if they'll, what kind of speaking opportunities that will be. But we're certainly willing to share because it was a wonderful experience.
Ron was asking me today whether your story has been or we're going to send it to the Anabaptist world. And I said, well, Kate and we need to get together and do a news release for Anabaptist world. So I think that's a good idea. Could I go back, Kate, for a minute to Jeff's earlier question? I'd like to share my screen. I wrote to Christine a couple of weeks ago because we are sharing Teresa's story in our next NPI newsletter. And I want to get a few reactions from Christine about her.
Oops.
Howard, I think you froze, unless that's just for me.
Howard, are you there?
I'm here, but am I frozen?
You're unfrozen now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can? Okay. I want to just share this screen, and it's also, she makes a comment about Teresa that I wanted to share. So on this screen, she says, I'm going to scroll down a bit so I can see it better. English speaking chaplaincy volunteers are always welcome. And then she goes down and says, and I've developed an introduction explaining the opportunities and limitations for them. Volunteers are helpful even although there is a real language limitation. As chaplain, I explained to them, the volunteers, that is, that I will translate as much as I can, though I'm also careful to explain that as most of our work is cold calls at present, translation might not always be possible if I'm already struggling to make a connection with the person. The volunteer provides prayer support at all times. And Teresa was mentioning this, praying with the chaplains before and after visits, and also praying silently during visits. They are an extra set of both physical and spiritual eyes, noting whether other patients are making eye contact and want visits, watching for discomfort in the patient, and also sensing whether there's an opportunity for prayer. Some patients do speak English, and so they may also be able to take part freely in the conversations and or pray. Some Jewish patients are also approached in English if there's no other common language. And then I'm going to scroll down and just share Christine's comment here. Regarding Teresa's time with us, it was great to have her as part of the chaplaincy team. Her caring nature and her wisdom made her a great fit for the chaplaincy. Her background as a nurse gave her an insight into healthcare chaplaincy, which was invaluable, and the support she gave to our team was amazing. She approached each visit with the person at the forefront of her mind, eager to meet them, to learn about them, and to care for them. Her work as a nurse and her familiarity with hospitals meant that she also had that unshockable quality, retaining her ability to interact with people, even in difficult physical situations, without being overwhelmed. Her love Okay, I'll stop sharing there. Thank you. I thought that's a little more feedback to what Jeff was asking about.
I think that I know in working with the chaplains at Nazareth, just that like silent prayer support is really invaluable to them. To have someone with them who's able to do that, even though and when there is that language barrier. So I appreciate how Christine articulated that.
So Teresa, I have another question. In the accommodations, did you have your own apartment or just your own room?
We stayed in what's called the doctor's house, which has been beautifully renovated. And there's a large common kitchen, and a large common like living dining room. There's rooms, there's 2 stories. And so they look similar on the upper and the lower floor, but basically there's lots of common areas, and then you have your own room. Our room, because we were a couple, there's one room that has a little sitting room in with the room, and a kind of a kitchen sink with some little bit of storage. So it's a little bit more than some of the other rooms. And but I think because there's so many common areas, it makes even just the one room very tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rooms have a restroom in the room, en suite.
Yes, that's right.
We are in our last few minutes for now. Does anyone have any more questions or comments or thoughts they want to share? Well, thank you everyone so much for your time tonight. In particular, thank you, Howard, Andrew, and of course, Teresa. We so appreciate, getting to see you. Hope very much to get to see you in person in October near Goshen, about 20 minutes outside of Goshen for our annual gathering. And there's the trip coming up to Nazareth in March next year, as well as the Jesus Trail. And many ways to get involved. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about this experience in Nazareth or ways to be involved with MHF or Nazareth Project. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
See y'all.
Good to see Weldon.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thanks, Claire.
Mhm.
Bye, all.